I never
但
planned to
七
be there
点
that
玻璃
late.
外机
The cafe wasn't even my usual spot, it was one of those places that felt like it belonged to someone else's life. Too neat, too calm. The kind of place where people came with books they actually finished. But it was open, and I didn't feel like going home just yet. So I sat by the window, nursing a coffee that had already gone cold. My phone was face down on the table. I'd typed out a message to someone earlier, just a simple, "How've you been?" and then erased it before sending. That was becoming a habit, writing things I didn't have the nerve to send. That's when she walked in. She wasn't the kind of woman you overlook, even if she wanted to be. Mid-40s, maybe older, dark coat wrapped around her like she was still carrying the chill from outside. Her hair was tied back, not perfectly, more like she'd done it quickly on the way here. She ordered without looking at the menu, voice low, certain. And then her eyes caught mine. I should have looked away. Instead, I found myself holding it for a second longer than I should have, like my body didn't get the message in time. She didn't smile, but she didn't look through me either. It was a look you feel in your stomach more than your chest, weighty, noticing. She sat a few tables down. I tried to pretend I was reading something on my phone, but my screen was still black. The truth was, I could hear the way she stirred her coffee, slow circles against the cup. When the barista came by to wipe down the counter, she caught my eye again. This time, she tilted her head slightly. "They make it too strong here," she said, her voice carrying just enough for me to hear. It was the kind of comment you could ignore, but I didn't. "Guess that explains why mine's been sitting here for an hour," I said, tapping the rim of my cup. The corner of her mouth lifted. Not a full smile, something smaller, quieter. We didn't talk much after that. Just small things, half thrown across the space between us. She asked if I was studying. I said not anymore, just working nights and trying not to fall behind on everything else. She told me she came here when she couldn't sleep. The way she said it, I had the sense it wasn't the first time. There was a pause then, not uncomfortable exactly. She folded her napkin carefully, creasing it like it mattered. I watched, caught in that tiny, unnecessary act. When she finally stood to leave, I thought that would be it. Just one of those passing moments you think about for an hour and then let go. But as she passed my table, she leaned down slightly. Close enough that I caught the faint scent of her perfume, something warm I couldn't name. "You won't forget this night," she said, almost like she was reminding me. Then she was gone, coat trailing behind her, door swinging shut. I sat there staring at the empty space she left behind, coffee long since gone cold, phone buzzing once with a notification I didn't check. I should have left too, but I didn't. I kept waiting, as if maybe she'd come back. Or maybe just because some nights don't end the way you think they should. And she was right. I didn't forget. The next time I saw her, it wasn't planned. It never was. I'd been walking back from the store, a paper bag tucked under my arm, when the rain started, sharp and sudden, like it skipped the drizzle and went straight to a downpour. I ducked under the nearest cover, which happened to be her porch. She opened the door a moment later, surprised. "You again," she said, though not unkindly. Her hair was loose this time, falling around her shoulders in damp waves, as if she hadn't bothered to fix it before answering. "Not stalking you," I muttered. "Just bad timing." She looked at the bag under my arm. "Groceries aren't waterproof, you know." I shrugged, rain dripping off my jacket. Guess I didn't think that far ahead. Without another word, she disappeared inside. For a second I thought maybe she'd left me standing there. But she came back with a towel, holding it out. "You'll catch cold like that." I took it, careful not to brush her hand. Still, the heat of her lingered in the fabric. We stood in silence, listening to the rain hit the porch roof in sheets. It should have been awkward. Strangely, it wasn't. She broke the quiet first. "I used to like storms," she said, eyes fixed on the street. When I was a kid, my mother would unplug everything and we'd sit with candles. She said it made the world feel smaller, safer. The way she said it, like it was both a memory and a loss, caught me off guard. I found myself answering before I thought about it. I used to think rain made the world lonelier. Like everyone disappeared into their houses and I was the only one left outside. Her eyes flicked toward me then, searching. A smile almost formed, then faded. Funny how the same thing can feel so different to two people. I nodded, gripping the towel tighter than I needed to. Maybe it depends on who you're with. That hung between us, heavier than the sound of the storm. I didn't mean it to come out that way, or maybe I did. Either way, I couldn't take it back. She shifted, pulling her sweater closer. The porch light caught the faint lines near her eyes. Not flaws, just time. And that's when it hit me, sharper than before, she wasn't supposed to be someone I thought about this way. Too much older. Too much already lived. If I let myself, I could imagine the judgment in every shadowed window on the street. Still, I couldn't stop. The rain slowed up. When I finally moved to leave, she reached out, just a light touch on my sleeve, quick enough I might have imagined it. Take care of those groceries, she said, but her eyes held longer than her hand. It was nothing. Just neighborly. But walking home, with the bag damp against my chest, all I could think was how much it felt like more. I wasn't planning to see her that day. But life doesn't check with you first. I'd borrowed a book from her the week before, something she said she was done pretending to reread. A slim paperback, pages yellowing, corners folded. I wanted to give it back quickly, no reason to linger. That's what I told myself anyway. When I knocked, the door was already cracked open. Her voice drifted out. Not the voice she used with me. Softer, almost careful. I know, but it's not that simple, she was saying. A pause, then, no, I don't regret it. I froze, one foot still on the step. I shouldn't have listened, but I couldn't move. My fingers tightened around the book until the spine bent. Then her laugh, short, but tired. You always make it sound easier than it is. The sound of her voice pulled at something I didn't want to name. I must have shifted, because the floorboard creaked under me. A beat of silence inside, then the door opened wider. She was there, phone still in hand. Her expression flickered, caught between surprise and something else I couldn't place. You're early, she said finally, slipping the phone into her sweater pocket. Sorry. I had your book. I held it out, like proof I hadn't been eavesdropping. Her eyes dropped to it, then back to me. Thanks. That should have been the end. Hand her the book, go. But I didn't step back, and she didn't close the door. She let me in instead. The living room smelled faintly of lemon cleaner, but the coffee table was cluttered with unopened mail. A small detail, but it felt personal in a way that made me uneasy. She poured tea into 2 cups without asking if I wanted any. Set one in front of me. Sat across, not too close. For a while, neither of us spoke. I kept tracing the rim of the cup with my thumb. She folded and refolded a piece of mail like it mattered. Finally, I said, that call sounded important. She looked at me, too directly. Everyone's got a past, she said. Doesn't always stay where you leave it. I nodded, though I wasn't sure what she meant me to take from it. My chest felt tight anyway. When I glanced up, her gaze hadn't moved. It lingered, long enough to make my throat dry. I tried to laugh it off. You always this mysterious. She almost smiled. Almost. Then she leaned back, breaking the thread. You should be careful. Curiosity doesn't always end well. It stung, though her tone was light. I looked down at my hands, then back at hers, resting on the arm of the chair, fingers tapping once, twice. I wanted to reach. Just place my hand over hers. Simple. Clear. But I didn't. Instead, she drew her hand back, folded it into her lap. A quiet retreat, but it felt louder than any words. We sat there, silence pressing between us, until the clock on the wall ticked louder than the tea cooling in our cups. And in that moment, I almost said it. Almost crossed something we couldn't return from. But almost isn't the same as doing. It started with food. Something so small it should have meant nothing. I was locking my door when she called my name. Her porch light was on, catching her face in a softer glow than the sun ever gave. She held out a plastic container. "Too much for one," she said. "Take it before it goes bad." I hesitated, keys still in hand. "You don't have to," her look cut me off. Not sharp. Just final. I took the container. Later, sitting at my kitchen table, I opened it. Still warm. Pasta, careful seasoning, bread wrapped in a napkin. I ate slowly, alone, but the taste felt borrowed, like being allowed into someone else's evening without asking. The next day, I thanked her. She brushed it off with a wave. But the day after that, she did it again. Another container. Different meal. And again after that. It became a rhythm. Too quiet to call routine, but steady enough to notice. One night, after handing me a dish, she lingered by my door. "Do you ever get tired of eating alone?" she asked. I swallowed, throat dry. "Sometimes." She nodded, like she understood too well. Then she looked at me, really looked. And for a second, it wasn't neighborly at all. Something broke in me then. Not anger, not sadness. Just, a weight I'd been holding too long. "You don't have to keep doing this," I said, my voice lower than I meant. "Feeding me, I mean. Unless you want to." Her hand tightened slightly around the strap of her bag. "Maybe I do." The word sat there, fragile and dangerous. I couldn't breathe right. I tried to laugh it off. "Guess I'll have to return the favor. Though you'll regret my cooking." But the humor didn't land. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was crowded, filled with what neither of us would say. Finally, I blurted, "It's hard, you know. Pretending this is nothing." Her eyes widened slightly. Then softened. "You shouldn't say that," she whispered, almost to herself. "Why not?" My voice cracked, more raw than I wanted. "I mean, it's there. Isn't it?" Her hand brushed against the doorframe, as if steadying herself. "Because it can't be. You're too young. I've lived too much." And, she cut herself off, shaking her head. I stepped closer without thinking. Close enough to see the small crease by her mouth, the way her breath caught. Neither of us moved for a long moment. My hand twitched, like it wanted to reach for hers. Her lips parted, just slightly. The world felt narrow to the space between us, a single thread holding everything together. Then she stepped back. Just one step. Enough to unravel it all. "Good night," she said softly. And the door closed. I stood there, container still in my hands, heart pounding like I'd confessed everything, though I'd barely said a word. After that night, things shifted. Not all at once. More like a rug being pulled slow, inch by inch. She stopped leaving food at my door. Stopped waving when we crossed paths. If we passed each other in the driveway, she gave a polite nod, but her eyes never held mine the way they used to. At first, I told myself I imagined it. That she was busy, tired, distracted. But the silence between us stretched longer each day, and I couldn't shake the feeling it was deliberate. One evening, I saw a car parked in her driveway I didn't recognize. Dark sedan, older model. A man got out, mid-50s maybe, graying hair, suit jacket slung over one shoulder like he didn't care if it wrinkled. He carried himself with the comfort of someone who'd been there before. I froze at my window, lights off, watching like some coward who couldn't look away. They talked at her door. Not loud, but her body leaned against the frame, arms folded. Guarded. His hands moved while he spoke, like he was trying to explain something. At one point, she laughed. Or maybe it was just a short breath, but it tightened something in my chest all the same. They went inside. I told myself it wasn't my business. That I had no right to feel anything about it. But the thought stayed with me long after the car disappeared. That night, I typed out a message on my phone. Just a simple, "Everything okay?" My thumb hovered over the send button until the screen dimmed, then went black. I didn't send it. The next morning, I saw her leaving early. Different coat, hair brushed smooth, almost too deliberate. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did and chose not to. I went about my day, but the silence clung like humidity. I kept reaching for my phone, opening and closing the screen, the unsent message still sitting there. By evening, I couldn't take it. I walked to her door. Stood there with my hand raised, ready to knock. But I didn't. The porch light was off. The blinds drawn. For all I knew, she wasn't even home. Or maybe she was, sitting just feet away on the other side of the door, waiting for me not to knock. I lowered my hand and walked back across the driveway. The night air felt colder than it should have. Inside, I sat on my couch, phone in my hand, message still glowing back at me. Everything okay? I deleted it. Retyped it. Deleted it again. In the end, the screen stayed empty. Some silences are louder than words. And some doors, once you don't knock, stay closed. It was early when I saw her again. Too early for either of us to be outside. I was hauling a basket of laundry to my car, still half asleep, t-shirt wrinkled, hair a mess. She stepped out of her house at the same time, wearing what looked like pajamas under a long sweater, slippers scuffing the porch wood. For the first time, she didn't look untouchable. She looked human. Tired. Unprepared. And in that unpolished moment, something inside me softened. She froze when she saw me. For a second, I thought she'd turn back inside. But instead, she let out a quiet breath and gave a small wave. "Morning," she said. Her voice sounded different, lower, rougher, like she hadn't used it yet today. "Morning." I set the basket down, suddenly self-conscious about the way I probably looked. The air between us felt thinner than usual, as if the silence might actually break this time. "I'm sorry," she said finally. No context. No explanation. Just those two words. I swallowed, not sure what I was supposed to do with them. For what? Her eyes flicked away, toward the ground. For pulling back. For confusing things. For letting it go too far. The word stung, but I could see the cost in her face. It wasn't rejection, it was fear. I stepped closer, laundry basket forgotten at my feet. "You don't have to explain. I get it." "I do." "No, you don't." Her voice caught. "You're young. You'll move on." "But me," she shook her head. "I can't risk." "Stop," I said, softer than I meant. My hand lifted, not quite touching her, just hovering in the space between us. "You don't have to protect me from this. From you." She closed her eyes for a moment, like she was weighing every word. When she opened them, they shone with something raw, unguarded. "You make me feel," she trailed off, searching. "Like I've stepped out of my own life. And that scares me." I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "I'm scared too." For the first time, we were level. No roles. No distance. Just two people standing in the quiet morning, stripped down to nothing but truth. I didn't kiss her. She didn't move closer. But she let her hand fall, brushing against mine, light, deliberate, enough to say what neither of us could put into words. We stood like that, hand to hand, silence around us. Finally, she gave the smallest nod. A whisper of a smile. "Okay," she said. Just that. But it was enough. Weeks passed before I noticed the rhythm had changed. Not in a sharp way, no slammed doors, no dramatic exits. Just little shifts. Her porch light, once dark most nights, now glowed steady. My laundry trips in the early morning often lined up with her stepping outside for the paper. And somehow, without arranging it, we kept crossing paths. Not every day. Not enough to call it a routine. But enough that it began to feel like one. One morning at 8:47 a.m., I remember because I'd just checked the time, running late for work, she was on her porch with a mug of tea. She saw me, lifted it slightly in greeting. I raised my travel thermos back at her. We didn't speak, but the quiet exchange carried more weight than any conversation we'd ever had. Later, she invited me in for coffee. Not the strong kind, she said with a small smile, remembering my complaint from that first night at the cafe. I noticed she kept her mugs mismatched, like she'd collected them from different points in her life. She handed me one with a faded sunflower on the side. We didn't talk about what we were. We didn't have to. Instead, we talked about the small things, her garden that kept losing to weeds, my boss who kept forgetting schedules. She'd laugh, dry and soft, and it stayed with me longer than it should have. Sometimes I caught myself waiting for her to pull away again. To vanish into silence like she had before. But she didn't. Not this time. One night, rain started while we sat together on her porch. I expected her to retreat, but she stayed. She even reached out, brushed the back of my hand with her fingers, so lightly it felt like permission, not possession. "You still think storms make the world lonelier?" she asked. I shook my head. "Not when someone's sitting next to you." She looked at me then, steady, like she was memorizing the moment. And maybe she was. We never had a confession, no single moment where everything shifted all at once. It was slower than that. Earned. Like water wearing down stone. Now, when I see her porch light at night, I don't mistake it for absence. I know she's there, kettle on, waiting with mismatched mugs. And in some quiet, almost secret way, I belong there too. It isn't perfect. It isn't simple. But it's ours. And she was right that first night, about one thing at least. I didn't forget.